Welcome into Gridiron Eve. Gridiron Eve. I was about to say hour again. I got too many shows, dude.
Yeah.
Mike Huesmann, I'm John Vogel. How are we doing today, Mike?
We are doing well. It has been a busy week, but a good week, and excited to be here for week 7. And excitingly enough, we are midway through the season almost, and we are all tied up after last week. So I think that's really fun. Yeah.
I guess we're gonna start there because you just brought it up. The score: 3-2. I was last week. 2-3. You were in challenges.
Yep.
And it was an exciting week. I mean, it was pretty crazy, wasn't it? I mean, Notre Dame goes down to Louisville. USC gets that scare from Arizona.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that early in the day, that Oklahoma-Texas game was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
You nailed me on that one, I feel. Against
You
your
got
better
me on
judgment, if I remember.
Yeah, the Bama A&M one was tight. You ended up prevailing in that one.
I told you, they got it figured out.
Yeah,
I told you.
The other one, that was an interesting one because, late in that game, A&M had a touchdown called back where they then had to kick a field goal. If they get that touchdown and then Bama runs it out, I would have covered that.
That's true.
Because it would have been 2.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
The one though where you got the week started off right was that Thursday night game with La Tech and Western Kentucky where Western Kentucky got up by like 28, and then La Tech fought back, got it within a possession, but then turned it over a few times late. And you beat me that first challenge with Western Kentucky, and then, we split 2-2 on Saturday. I have the 5-1 USC. I got you on Oklahoma, and UCLA covered at home against Wazoo.
Yep.
And looked good. And then you got me with Louisville, covered that against Notre Dame. That was an interesting one because out of all of our challenges last week, like for the first 4, I was like, oh, that makes sense. It could go either way. I was surprised when you picked Louisville, though, because I just thought Notre Dame, I feel like they're comfortably going to win by 9 or 10. And Louisville just came out and was clearly the better team on that night. I mean, they, from the beginning to the end, they just had it, and that was a good pick by you. And then
the other thing to point out now is that they're 3-0-1 against the spread when they play Notre Dame all time now.
Yeah,
that's insane when you think about it. They have always covered, and that's the first time they beat Notre Dame outright. So it was also the first time they were playing in Cardinal Stadium, which had been renovated recently, and they added a whole lot of new seats. First time it was sold out since they renovated it.
Yeah,
it looked awesome. It was a great atmosphere. That was a great game.
Yeah. The other, I think, smaller thing to touch on from last week is just the epic coaching meltdown at Miami with not kneeling the ball out and then turning it over, and Georgia Tech getting a late touchdown to get a win there. I mean, that's all on Mario, and that's one of those you can't defend it. And I don't think he would try to defend it. I think they would openly say that.
You know what's funny about that is there's two things. First off, I turned that game off with like 3 minutes left to play because I was like, oh yeah, they're gonna run the clock out. It's done. It's over. And I moved on.
It's funny, after they got the first down and I thought they would kneel it out, I kept the game on, but I muted it because I was watching highlights on my laptop, and then I look up and they were at the ball. I was like, well, what the heck happened? So I had to search quick to see what happened. It's like, oh my god. Yeah.
And then the other thing to point out there, that's not the first time Mario Cristobal has not knelt the ball down at the end of a game and lost it due to that. I mean, he lost to a game like that against Stanford when he was at Oregon in the exact same scenario. And so I think that's why I said on Twitter this week, I said, hey, when you make a mistake for the first time, it's a learning experience. When you do the exact same thing with another team for the second time,
exactly,
you're a moron.
I think I remember the other one too for the review. You had asked me a question: is Georgia the number 1 team? And I said so far no. Well, last weekend they had their first big challenge against a good team playing well, and they throttled Kentucky. So they
wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I still don't know if I'd pick them right now to win the title, but they should be ranked number 1 after last week. I will give them that for sure.
And they are. They are.
Yeah.
They're ranked number 1 in the country for good reason. Yeah. Now they showed out offensively. Yeah. Now that was one of those that I actually took the 14.5 on Georgia. I didn't do it on the show, but I took it, as a bet. They had FanDuel had the whole, betting prop deal where you could get a boost. I think it was a 50% boost for that game. And so I jumped on that, and I got them at 14.5 at plus 150. That was awesome.
Good.
So, but I thought Georgia was going to come in there and just sweep the floor with them, and that's exactly what they did.
They did.
But it was good to see their offense finally clicking from the start of the game.
Carson Beck played his best game of the year. I think everybody would say that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He actually looks like a quarterback now.
Yes. The other interesting thing, we've talked about, in down the road conference title playoff ones. An interesting fact was brought to me a couple days ago. In the ACC, we have 3 undefeated conference teams: Florida State, Louisville, North Carolina, none of whom play each other. So we could have a scenario with 3 undefeated conference teams, one of whom would not make the conference title game.
Oh,
yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. Now, the odds of that would be unlikely for sure. Yeah. But it is still
it's a possibility.
Just an odd fact. Yes,
it's a possibility.
Absolutely a possibility.
You're telling me there's a chance.
Yeah. And North Carolina has, I believe, a tough matchup. Florida State plays Syracuse this week.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina, I thought they played some. Miami coming off of the loss goes to Chapel Hill.
And Miami's going to be pissed that game. So they're going to give North Carolina their best shot.
I did see a stat that said Mario coming off of a loss as a head coach is quite good. I don't know if it was undefeated, but it was really good. And his percentage of covering also really good.
You probably take out last year when you get that stat, and I think he's probably undefeated. Because I remember, at Oregon, I don't ever remember Oregon losing back-to-back games.
No,
while he was there, I don't remember that.
That's probably fair.
Anyways, I guess are we about ready to get into this stuff?
I think so. There's nothing else. We've not had any coaches fired since the Mel Tucker. Obviously. I maintain Dana Holgerson, I think, is probably the next at some point, but that hasn't happened yet.
Oh, going strong there with Houston. No, I guess the last thing I'll say before we get started here is I nailed it with my final pick last week. You didn't challenge. That was very smart of you not to challenge. I took Wyoming.
Yeah.
Plus 6.5 over Fresno State. They won outright. My guy, Cole Godbout, bam, game-sealing interception. I was very excited. I was watching the game, and I was very excited.
One of us might be talking about Wyoming later today. Hint for you watching the show.
Yeah. Might be coming up very quickly, actually.
Sure will be.
But no, I thought that's the first time Wyoming's ever beat Fresno State in their history, I believe.
It's shocking to me, yeah. But I do remember,
And so that was a huge win for them. They got a legit shot at the Mountain West title, and their first challenge is what's get us into this round 1. You are taking them this week, plus 10 over Air Force.
I saw that spread, and I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe the spread was that big. Not that Air Force at home shouldn't be favored, but historically, service academies as double-digit favorites almost never cover against fellow FBS schools. Mm-hmm. Just the way they play is not conducive to it. I think in this game, there's a lot of things working against that, and why I like Wyoming. They're a salty team. They're tough. They do the little things well. They're technically sound. Looking deeper, neither of these teams turn the ball over, which is going to lean to a closer spread. And looking at the adjusted pace, Wyoming is 122nd in the country. So they're playing very slow, minimizing possessions. Air Force, dead last, 133 in adjusted pace. So you may not see a slower-paced game all year in this one. And because of all those reasons, I don't see Air Force blowing out a team that is as good as Wyoming is. Air Force certainly could win. I'm not saying that that's off the table. But I really like Wyoming to cover that. Peasley, the transfer in is playing well. Whaley, good running back, has over 500 yards, a few touchdowns. Weiland, good receiver. I mean, they're doing good things. Craig Bowl has a good squad going there. And, yeah, this game, especially for Wyoming, if they win, you can probably punch their ticket to the conference title game. Air Force has a couple tough games and some work to do, but whoever wins this one really has a leg up in getting to that conference title game.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but I do think that they're in a good position with the bye after this game.
Yes.
Because the rest of their really heavy part of their schedule follows that, which is at Boise State, they're going to blue turf, and then Colorado State the week after. And I think those are two good contending teams as well. They don't have the chances, likelihood if we were to do percentages right here that Wyoming does. But I think that's a good. They're in a perfect position with the way the schedule is falling, where they get that bye week, they take on their last two tough opponents, and they can almost they won't do this, but they can almost coast through those last three games.
Those last games they definitely should be the better team, heavily favored.
Yeah, I'm not challenging this one because Wyoming has actually covered 11 of the last 13 meetings against Air Force.
Interesting.
Now, what is interesting, too, is that in the Craig Bowl era, the last time they went to Air Force, they were 5-point underdogs. They lost by 10. And the time before that, when they went to Air Force, they were under 11-point underdogs. They lost by 14. So it's those two games have been on the road where they've lost by double digits to Air Force. Still, this is the best team Craig Bowles had.
Yes.
And that's saying a lot because Josh Allen was there at one point.
He was.
During his tenure there. I cannot see Wyoming absolutely just shitting the bed in this game. I can't see it. I think that they're going to stay with them, and it's a one-possession game the entire way. Yeah. It might be deadlocked most of the game, to be honest.
I feel like this game is like a 21-17 type game, 24-20, where nobody's scoring too many points in this game. It's going to be tough to sustain drives, but that's what both these teams do. So keeping it close and limiting possessions,
that's what I would expect. That's what I'm thinking. So it'll be close. I don't think anybody's going to get an advantage like that in that one.
Yeah,
I like North Texas -6.5 over Temple. This is the first time that they're ever meeting. These two teams. North Texas is coming in. They've won 2 games so far this year. They beat Louisiana Tech, close shootout. They beat Abilene Christian. They lost to Navy last week. But Temple, to me, seems like they're like one of the worst FBS teams currently right now. Yeah, their defense is porous. They don't have a lot of weapons on offense. They're trying to develop a young quarterback in E.J. Warner, who's Kurt Warner's son. But when you look at this, the first thing is that the Mean Green are 27-14 straight up at home since 2016. So typically, they play very well at home, and I think we saw that a couple times this year. Now, when Temple goes on the road, they are 0-12 straight up in conference games since 2020. Wow. Now, granted, this is the first time it's a conference game for these two, but they haven't won a conference game on the road in 3 years. So, to me, I look at this and I say, I don't like what I've seen from Temple so far. You have the win over Akron that wasn't convincing. You have the win over Norfolk State. That's your biggest win. But, you got some points up on the board the last couple weeks. But the defense has been letting everybody score 40. Texas is an explosive offense that can go for 50 any given day that they want to. I don't think Temple can keep up with North Texas in this game. So I like the -6.5 here.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. Chandler Rogers struggled early in the year. He's looking better the last couple weeks for North Texas. Had a decent game against Navy last week, and Temple is just not a very good team. I mean, they've lost 3 in a row. They've allowed over 40 points in all of them, okay? Miami, just a lot better. UTSA, who did get Frank Harris back, better, but they allowed 48 points to a Tulsa team. That is totally changed from what it was last year with new coach, new players. I mean, they're on defense, this Temple team just is not getting it done. You look at their stats, they are near the bottom in most of the meaningful, defensive categories. And there's only a handful of teams who I would consider challenging on Temple's side right now on this show. Like, there are not many teams you'd pick them to go up against and come out on top there. They're just not very good. And North Texas with Eric Morris. They're improving. You can see in some ways, like, it makes sense they have a first-year head coach there. Eric Morris, for those of you that don't know out there, was Cam Ward's old coordinator at Wazoo, and then his head coach the year before at Incarnate Word. So he's a former Mike Leach player at Texas Tech. But started off, struggle the opening weeks. North Texas is doing good things. So once the conference schedule gets rolling, I think they'll pick up a few more wins this season. So
I'll give you one more little tidbit on this thing. You have to go back to 2019, the last time Temple covered a single-digit away spread. Period.
That's really bad. Yeah, because that means you're losing every road game to teams who are similarly talented to you, and that shouldn't be happening.
And the list is it's bad. It's bad. So I like that you literally have to go back to them. They were 6-point underdogs to Tulane. They won 29-21, and that was in 2019. They were 8-5 that year. I can't see them staying with North Texas in this offense.
They also had that was the Rod Carey years, and he was a terrible head coach. This week promoted to O-coordinator at Temple. So he'd been the O-line coach, but they fired the OC at Indiana.
Interesting. Ready for round 2?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. You like Charlotte +3 over Navy.
I do. Charlotte's D is not bad. I should have said something first. Both of these teams overall are pretty awful football teams.
Okay.
Neither of them are very good. Charlotte's D is doing some things okay, though. Their yards per play is not bad. And Navy's not getting explosive plays, so you figure you can limit Navy moving the ball. Charlotte's allowing right a little under 5 yards a play, which for college is not terrible. But Navy's not getting those explosive plays. And Biff Poggi, it looks like they're starting to understand his system. There's not a lot of talent on that roster, but maybe more than Navy. The one thing I will say that is troubling for me in picking Charlotte in this one, they're not forcing many turnovers, and Navy is also not turning the ball over much. Navy's not thrown an interception this year, which is surprising because they're not good. Well, part of it's because they don't throw the ball much, but if Charlotte can't force turnovers, maybe my prediction will turn out to be false. But I just think we're dealing with two offenses that aren't great now, but I like the way Charlotte is trending a little more, and I think their D can shut down Navy's offense, which is pretty anemic. So at +3, I thought this was an all right one to take a shot on.
Well, I see what you're doing here, Mike. Your last pick, you went over Air Force.
I did.
And, I can't pick my guys in Wyoming. I can't go against them. But I don't have any ties to Charlotte, and I really kind of hate Navy. You see the Army thing here that I'm wearing?
Yeah, I do see that, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a reason why I hate Navy. But when I look at this matchup, there's a couple things that stood out to me. Number one is that Charlotte has played 4 games so far that were outside of South Carolina State, which is their final win.
Yeah.
They're 0-4 in those games.
They are.
They're allowing about 35 points a game right now. And Georgia State scored 41 on them. Florida really kind of came in there and didn't do much. Kept it really dry for the most part, 22-7. SMU took care of business 34-16. And then Maryland on NBC beat them week 2, 38-20. When I look at these types of matchups, the first thing is that the 49ers have never played a service academy, ever. This is no level.
And the relatively new football program, I guess it's not that shocking. Yeah.
So the other thing is Charlotte is 2-6 off of a bye, and 0-3-1 against the spread in conference home openers since 2019. They've never covered a conference season opener. So when I take those couple things into consideration, I look at Navy. Navy's 3-0 in games played, that's straight up and against the spread, in games played in North Carolina since 2015. They are 16-7-1 against the spread away from home since 2019, and 12-3 against the spread in ACC play. Okay. So the trends, and then when you even look at, they beat North Texas last week, 27-24.
Yeah, they did.
Their other win was to Wagner. They took Memphis down to the ropes, 28-24. USF, they lost by 2 touchdowns, 44-30. So I think the thing is, Navy's mixing in a whole lot more than just a triple option. They're lining up like it's triple option just about every play, but they're mixing a lot of different things into it to make it even put more stress on a team that's not used to playing a triple option. Charlotte's never played a triple option before. No. So in that case, I have to go to Navy. So I'm challenging you on this one.
Okay.
Absolutely. I have to. All the trends are pointing at Navy. As much as it pains me as an Army person to pick Navy, I have to challenge you. I think Navy covers. They've done it consistently, so.
I will say one thing, too, that would lead towards your side a little bit. This spread has basically been unchanged the entire week. It's pretty much stayed at Navy -3 the whole week.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And whereas there's a spread of yours that's already changed. But that's okay. We're gonna leave it the way you submitted it. Absolutely, because it favors you.
Yeah, well, and it's one of those. When I submitted it, it was accurate. And say the spread would have went against me, I wouldn't have complained. I would just, that's what it was. Yeah. So either way, good or bad, I would have.
We'll leave it. We'll leave it. We're all good. So I decided to take a page out of your book this week.
Oh,
and dip into the MAC.
You got to. Yeah.
Getting some action in here. And so I had to touch on Buffalo and Bowling Green because I looked at this spread, and it was one that popped at me when I saw it. I went, -3.5, that's it? Now, Buffalo had a really, a rough start to the year. They were 0-4. They lost to Fordham. They lost to Liberty. They lost to Wisconsin. They lost to Louisiana. They scored a lot of points in those games, though. And then they had the weird game at Akron, 13-10. They win that in overtime, and then they blow out Central Michigan last week.
Yeah.
So when I look at this, the Bowling Green situation, there's a lot of things here that kind of point against me because the home team is just 2-3 against the spread since 17 in this series. Last year, Buffalo took revenge for a 14-point upset loss as a 13-point halftime, or a 13-point home favorite in 21. They led 31-0 at halftime, and after a 98-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown, they led 38-0 before winning 38-7. They blew this team out last year.
Yeah.
Bowling Green is coming off a shutout loss to Miami.
Yeah.
I don't think Buffalo shuts them out, but I think Buffalo has this game circled. For some reason, they don't like those guys over there in Bowling Green, Ohio. I'm going to take them at -3.5.
Yeah, this is another one where I'm with you. I just don't think this Bowling Green team is any good this year. They like a lot of the MAC teams, they got hit the transfer portal pretty hard. And Buffalo is doing some things well. Cole Snyder is playing all right at QB. Ronnie Cook and Mike Washington are both running the ball pretty well. Near the goal line especially, they've found ways to get the ball in the end zone and not have to settle for field goals. They're spreading it around, in the passing game. Marlon Johnson, Harding, Cole Harity, Booby Curry, all decent receivers. They're all doing good things. And I think they're spreading it around enough, passing and running, where they're not that predictable. And I just don't think Bowling Green will be able to stick with them. I think Buffalo, this is anywhere from a 7 to a 14-point game. I think at least
I'll give you another stat too. You ready for this one?
Please. Yes.
Bowling Green in 2 games of action so far has been outscored 65-7.
That's right, because Ohio throttled them a few weeks back. Yeah.
And that was their homecoming game too.
Yeah. Okay.
Their lone touchdown so far against MAC competition came in their homecoming game.
Yeah.
So, not great, Bob.
No, it's not. Yeah, this Bowling Green team won't go to a bowl game. Buffalo probably will. I think they'll win enough conference games to get to 6 wins.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Now,
I was down on Lindquist. Last year they lucked in and were very fortunate. This year they started off terrible on defense, but there are signs of hope, and they're looking better in a lot of areas. So I think he's doing an all right job.
Moving into round 3. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You did it. You
was
picked
not
every
it was not intentional. Yep.
single. It was not intentional. Are you sure about that?
I am sure. I had a short list. Yeah.
Minus 3.5 over Army.
I had a short list of 9 games, and I had to get rid of 4 of them. It just so happened I ended up keeping
all the Service Academies.
All the Service Academy games, plus 2 more. In terms of the G5 teams, I think this Troy team is really good. Yeah. They're salty on defense. They're not allowing many points. Gunnar Watson is a good QB. Kaimani Vidal, very good running back. He has a good chance to go over 1,000 yards for the season in this game. He's 830-something, which after 6 games is impressive. Troy's at 4-2. Their losses were to K-State and James Madison, who was undefeated, and atop the other division in the Sun Belt, which is a conference that's shown a lot of parity so far.
Yeah.
This year, but Watson's well. Kamani Vidal talked about him. Jabri Barber, Chris Lewis are both good receivers, and John Summerall, their head coach, is a defensive-minded guy. He was the linebackers at Kentucky before going to Troy, and this is a solid team. They are going to probably win 9 games, and I just like them to win this game and cover this spread against an Army team who is under a new offensive philosophy. Monken, it's because of, you had mentioned before, Navy not doing triple option stuff. Army's not either. Well, these teams really can't because of the new cut blocking rules.
Yep.
So Army is now, as Monken said it in the summer, it's going to be a lot of scheme things like Jamie Chadwell had been doing at Coastal Carolina. Troy had success, defensively against him, and that's why I like Troy to go in and win this game by a touchdown or more.
Yeah, last year they definitely did have some success against that type of an offense. They beat him in the conference title game, 45-26. The year before that, they lost 35-28. So it seemed like he kind of figured it out. Usually it's a 35-36 point. Now that's also with a great quarterback. Grayson McCall's been a great quarterback for them. Army does not have a Grayson McCall.
No.
There's absolutely no doubt about that. But here's a couple notes I've got for you. So Troy is 3-0 straight up but 0-2 against the spread against current independent teams since 1994. They played Army last year at home, and they won 10-9. They were 9-point favorites in that game. Obviously, they did not cover.
Yeah.
When Troy has played against other Sun Belt teams, their defense has been absolutely shut down. James Madison scored 16. Georgia State, who's had a very prolific offense in the conference this year, scored 7. Arkansas State, surprisingly, scored 3. That was a sarcasm in case you couldn't pick up on it. Because
funny
Tennessee fan here still remembers Butch Jones.
Yeah, funny though. I talked about this with Thor Nystrom a couple days ago. Arkansas State actually is looking better the last couple of weeks. They're doing so. They've found a QB and are now looking like a decent squad.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. They are. I'm still salty about Butch Jones, but when Troy plays out of conference opponents this year, Stephen F. Austin put 30 on them. Kansas State put 42 on them. Western Kentucky put 24. So while they've been playing really well in the Sun Belt, they haven't been playing well outside of the conference, so that includes FCS opposition.
That's a good defensive performance against Western Kentucky, though. Holding them to 24 solid.
It is. That is very solid. That's their best out-of-conference performance, I think, so far.
By far, yeah.
Now, I do like what Army's doing. I think Army's going to give them enough trouble. I'm challenging it.
Okay.
I have to. I'm challenging. Have to challenge here, Hughes, because first off, you're going against my Army guys. I can't stand for that. And second off, Troy has not covered against an independent team since 1994. Okay. And Army is independent, so I'm going to go with that.
Yeah. I understand that. It's a tight one. I based on the way they play, and Monken's doing a good job there. I can't say I hate it. Especially, I honestly didn't know all the spread stuff and the non-con stuff that you just brought up.
That's why I have the Phil Steele guide here, baby. Yeah. Phil Steele.
Yeah.
He's the god of college football. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, so I decided to go with one. This is an interesting one, okay? I thought that you would probably find this intriguing. I feel like this is a game that you're going to be like, this could go either way. I'm not touching it. Iowa plus 9.5.
You were right about that.
Yeah. Over Wisconsin. So here's a couple things that I liked when I was looking at this matchup. Because first off, Iowa looked like they might have had some things figured out on offense before Cade McNamara goes down for the year. They're now down to their backup quarterback, who is Deacon Hill. He's a 260-pound quarterback with shades of Jared Lorenzen on him. Yeah. That's a name, isn't it? When's the last time you thought about that guy?
When he died, probably. Yeah.
Rest in peace, Jared. You were a legend. Yeah. So this offense obviously hasn't been scoring a lot.
No.
Outside of the Penn State game, their defense has been phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
And even with the Penn State game, they only let them score 31. So, couple notes about this. The Hawkeyes are 9-10 straight up, but 12-7 against Wisconsin since 2002. 3-4 against the spread the last few years. Okay. The other thing is when you look at these last few matchups, at Wisconsin, they do pretty well. So I like the defense coming in here because I haven't been all that impressed with Wisconsin's offense. I might get in trouble for saying that. But their offense has struggled to find its rhythm, especially last week against a Rutgers team. The highest that they've scored all year is 38. They did it twice, once against Buffalo and once at Purdue. I understand it's a home game. I just have a feeling about this one, and I like Iowa covering. And probably, I don't know if Iowa wins straight out. I'm not thinking that they do, but I think it's a closer game than we're giving it credit for being.
So let me correct myself before when I said this game could go either way. I don't believe that. I believe you're 100% on the right side of this one in Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, this is another one I looked at. Iowa's defense is lights out. I mean, Phil Parker's one of the best D coordinators in the country. Mm-hmm. And you can tell that the Wisconsin guys are still getting used to Phil Longo's system. It's not something that many of them had the skill sets to thrive in. They're learning, they are getting better. Whereas Iowa is going to know just how to play this game to keep it competitive to the end. They're obviously not scoring a ton of points, but outside of the Penn State game, they're not doing awful either. Both, LaShawn Williams, Caleb Johnson, running the ball all right, with Deacon Hill in there. They obviously have a newer QB with less experience, but they won't put him in a position to make mistakes either. So I'm with you on this one. I like Iowa.
Good deal. Wow. I was expecting you to be like, "Oh, I'm not touching this one," because you're a Big Ten guy.
I was not. I wasn't touching it because I think you're on the right side of it. Yeah.
Moving on into round 4, this is a game that's going to be kicking basically as soon as we're done here.
Yes. Yeah.
So Florida International plus 1.5 over UTEP, and that's the line I was talking about earlier. It's moved to 2.5. So.
Yeah. That spread has flipped them. I think both of these coaches are really good. They're veterans. Mike McIntyre, who's been at FIU, was at San Jose State in Colorado before as head coach, has spent time as D coordinator at Ole Miss, Memphis. FIU's pass D is good. They're not allowing big plays. They're getting turnovers. Their run D isn't as good, but they're allowing a little under 4 yards a carry, and that is impressive for a college team. And even on McIntyre's teams where they haven't had a good QB or been able to really move the ball, they've been able to do just enough and find wrinkles that has helped them move the ball. Whereas Dimmel at UTEP, I think, is a very good program builder. He's certainly lifted UTEP up from being a bottom feeder to, they won 12 games the last 2 years total, which for there is impressive. That had not been done in a long time. But Gavin Hardison, their QB, and Tyron Smith, the receiver who had went to Texas A&M and then came back, they've not looked in sync like they did last year. They're not getting big plays, not getting the end zone. Hardison has also thrown a lot more interceptions than touchdowns so far this year. And this UTEP team, I just don't trust them to beat this FIU team. So that's why I'm going with FIU in this one.
Yeah, UTEP was supposed to be one of the top contenders in this conference, and so far they are winless against FBS opponents, including Jacksonville State. Week 1 they lost. Here's another interesting stat for you. The Miners all-time in the Eastern time zone are 126-1. So I'm going to agree with you here.
Yes.
They don't play well when they go east. They just never have. They finally got their first win when they beat Charlotte last year, 41-35.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is a team even last year that played horribly bad on the road, horribly bad. And this year that's only continued. You have the loss to Jacksonville State, you have the loss to Northwestern, 38-7, the loss to Arizona, 31-10. Now you're going against FIU, back to that Eastern time zone. Can't see it. I'm with you on that. I think Florida International pulls this one off, and I think it's relatively easy. So them being the underdog, that's great. That's awesome.
Okay.
Now here's a big game this weekend. I had to touch, and there's a few reasons why I decided to touch this one, and this is more so not because I'm following the trends or anything, as I've been doing this year and having a little bit more success, might I add, following the trends.
Yep.
That's not what I'm trying to do here. I like USC plus 2.5 over Notre Dame for 2 reasons. Number one, Notre Dame is, I believe, the only team in the FBS to not have a bye week yet. That is brutal. This is their 8th straight game. They've been playing since week 0. No bye week, and the last 3 games have all been primetime, night games.
Yeah.
That is ridiculously hard to prepare for.
Yeah, they have a bye week next week, then they play 2 games and have another bye week because of their week 0.
Yep. So you've got that absolutely just devastating loss in the final play to Ohio State. You've got that they come back that close game against Duke. They have to come back and win, and then they're just annihilated by Louisville last week. So 4th consecutive night game, no bye week. And then when you look at USC's performance, the argument becomes, well, USC struggled against Arizona last week. That's probably some indication that they're weak. Well, I think they overlooked Arizona a little bit.
They may have.
Yeah. I think they were game planning for Notre Dame. They were looking ahead on the schedule and took a couple days of practice and didn't put it into Arizona, and it almost bit them. So I think USC is going to have a lot of focus on this game. This is one of their first primetime games of the year. They haven't really been on a primetime slot like this all year because Colorado, we thought that might be a primetime. That ended up being an 11 o'clock kick my time, 12 Eastern. And everybody else that they played, this is their first big opponent, So they're going to be jacked up, fired up. They've probably been looking at this game for the last few weeks.
Yeah, this is a big game for both teams. Every year this is a big game.
I can't see them doing it. Even though when you look at their last few matchups, they beat them last year. So, Caleb Williams is 1-0 against Notre Dame. They were also 4-point favorites in that game, not 2.5-point underdogs.
Okay.
But yeah, you go back through the history, and typically Notre Dame has dominated this in the short span. But so far in the Lincoln Riley era, it's been USC. I think it continues just because of the scheduling conflict that Notre Dame put themselves in.
Yeah. I mean, Caleb Williams he's going to get over 2,000 yards for the season in this game. He's 1,800 something. He's 22 touchdowns, 1 interception. Marshawn Lloyd is running the ball well now. He's came on strong the last few games, and they have all kinds of receivers they're throwing to: Washington, Rice, Mario Williams, Singer, Branch. I don't even know. I don't know if Rayleigh Brown is coming back. He's been dinged up, and he wasn't playing a ton, but he was certainly uber talented. They've scored over 40 points every game this year. The Arizona game was close. They needed Caleb Williams to pull them out of that one. Colorado was close. They were up, and then Colorado scored late to make it a game. The Arizona State game was closer than I thought it would be, just because I don't think Arizona State's any good. And Notre Dame looked poor last week, but their pass defense is good. Or we thought it was good up until last
I think
week
the only concern that worries me is the USC defense, right?
Yeah.
But Notre Dame's offense has not looked very good the last 3 games that they played.
No, but good enough to score points on USC, I think. And that's why I'm going to challenge this one. Yeah. This is a tough one. I mean, I'm definitely taking a risk, and there's an amount of faith that is going into this one. But if there was ever a place to have faith included in my picks, it would be at Notre Dame Stadium. They've lost 2 of their last 3. The Ohio State game, they probably shouldn't have. They did. The Duke game that they won was a battle. I mean, they won that one right near the end. This is a make-or-break game for them, though. If they get a 3rd loss this early in the year, we're beginning to talk about a disappointing season.
Yeah.
And the things that have given Sam Hartman problems historically when he's played bad, USC cannot do those things. They're not a team with elite D-backs who's going to pressure him a ton and force him into bad throws. And that's been the recipe to get Hartman to turn the ball over and not play well. USC's not going to do that. Now, I'm obviously worried with how many points USC is scoring, but I'm going to take Notre Dame at home to come out on top in this one.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I think that's fair. You also decided to jump in on a big game action.
I did, yeah.
Oregon +3 over Washington.
So I've been kind of steadfast the last 3-4 weeks talking to people, Pac-12 might be the best conference in the country. I think it is so far. USC, Washington, Oregon. Well, who's the best team out there? I've always said it was Oregon, in those last 3-4 weeks, and I felt like it was time for me to finally put up or shut up on that, so to speak, because they've been by far the best defense of those three teams. This Washington team allowed over 30 points against Cal. USC can't stop anybody. Oregon's D has been pretty solid. So, and their offense has been good enough. Bo Nix is having a good year. They have multiple running backs who are finding ways to get in the end zone. They're getting them the ball both on the ground and in the air. This game is an afternoon kickoff. It is in Seattle. I know that. Mm-hmm. But Penix is a Heisman top 2. Him and Williams are, I think, by far the 1 and 2 this week. This game will have Heisman Trophy implications as well for both. I think we have those top 2 with Williams and Penix. Nix is in that next 3 that could shoot up to the top.
Yeah.
But because of how Oregon is playing defense and how well-rounded they are across the board, I like Oregon to cover this 3 points in this one.
I think it sounds like you're picking them to win straight out, actually, not just cover.
Yeah, at that small of a spread. Yeah, probably.
No, you made a lot of really good points there. And first thing is that the Ducks are 15-3 straight up and against the spread against Washington. Now, that being said, the visitor is 5-2 straight up and against the spread. 3-0 straight up and against the spread since 2019. So the visitor has dominated this series the last 4 years. Or the last 3 years. I think it's going to be 4 years. Like you said, the defense is playing at a very high level. We haven't seen that same type of defense from Washington. Granted, when you look at some of the opponents that they played, it makes the stats look nice because 19 against Boise, 10 against Tulsa, 7 against Michigan State. Michigan State's offense is abysmal right now. And then watching Cal and Arizona come in there and score points on them is scary. The one time Oregon has had trouble on defense was on the road. It's against Texas Tech, who they've been a pretty good offense. They got a lot of weapons, especially in the receiver room. But Oregon was able to ultimately prevail on the road. So I think that you're going to see something similar to here because Texas Texas Tech has a lot of smaller slot receivers, and then they got a big guy. Washington's a little bit more diverse in their receiver sets, but it's going to be enough to give Oregon some problems, I think. I do think Kyrie Jackson has a really good game if he's matched up against Rome Odunze the entire game. I think that Rome's going to be pretty quiet. But I think the other guys are going to be able to step up. Jalen Polk. I know that there's another guy, McMillan.
Is McMillan healthy? Do we know his health status for the week?
We don't know yet. Nope. Okay. So, but I'm assuming he's going to roll. If not, they got a good running back that can catch out of the backfield. And Dylan
Johnson's come on strong.
Oh yeah. So. It looks like we lost Mike there for a second. No, I think Oregon definitely covers. I like this one. Absolutely. Give us 1 second as we figure out what happened to Mike. We'll be back here in just a minute. Okay, now we got it working again.
So yeah, I don't know why. Like I looked at, and I'm at my office on the university, and the Wi-Fi went out. So that was on me.
Yeah. Okay, no, it's all good. We're good.
Okay.
But no, so I agree with you. I'm not going to challenge this. I think Oregon wins this game straight out. Yeah. I like that pick. I do like Colorado State at +7.5 over Boise State. I think I may be a little biased on this one because I got a close-up look at Colorado State right after that game that they played against Colorado. They went into MTSU.
Yep.
They struggled early, but they bounced back. They found themselves a quarterback. They've got a quarterback.
Yeah.
That quarterback, give me a second, is Braden Fowler.
Nicolesi.
Yeah. Nicolesi has played really, really well so far. When you look at their wins, it's not impressive. Middle Tennessee, Utah Tech are their 2 wins so far. They got beat pretty good on the road against Utah State. Now, the Rams have never defeated the Broncos, but the last 3 games that they've played in Fort Collins have been decided by 9 points or less.
Interesting.
That is a very interesting point.
Yeah.
I don't think they win this game. I think they cover 7.5. I think this is probably a 3-point game. Boise, while it looks like they've kind of figured out their quarterback situation, I believe they've made some adjustments on offense this year to kind of get it going. It's still not the Boise State offense that we're used to seeing, where they're dominant. They've got a great defense. They've been in a lot of really close games this year. I think that continues. I really like that spread right there, so I'm taking it.
Okay. Yeah, Colorado State has one of the best receivers anywhere in the country in Torrey Horton. He is really, really good. And they're certainly getting him the ball, which is smart. I think Jay Norvell is a good coach, too. For Boise, they kind of now are moving to 2 QBs. You know, Taylon Green had been the guy, but Maddox Madsen is also playing. Ashton Jeanty running the ball well. Boise's coming off of a win against San Jose State, who's having a down year, and that was a tight game.
Yeah.
They had a close loss to Memphis before that, who's one of the better G5 teams. I'm going to challenge you on this one and go with Boise to cover that. I just like Boise's, the diversity they have here in the different things they can do on offense, throwing, running wise. And this spread, I would have liked it had this spread been 6.5 or less. So I feel like it's a little bit of a challenge here for them to get that. But I'm going to go with Boise in this one to bring our challenge total up to 4.
Oh, wow. We are having 4 challenges today.
Yep.
That is interesting. No, that is interesting, too, because the one thing that also caught my attention was the fact that San Diego State scored 31 on them.
Yes, they did.
And if you haven't had the opportunity to watch San Diego State this year, you're not missing much. Not offensively.
No, they are a good defense and a poor offense. That is for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and review these challenges that we have in this week. I'm getting them pulled up as I'm doing this. So, Mike, you are challenging me on USC plus 2.5 over Notre Dame and Colorado State plus 7.5 over Boise State. I am challenging you on Charlotte plus 3 over Navy and Troy at minus 3.5 over Army. Because there's one of us in this room right now that loves America.
Yep. You can say that. I can't really debate that at this point. The facts will not. They
don't back you right now.
I can assure you, listeners, I do love America.
No, he does. He does.
Picking against the service academies is not going in my favor tonight.
It is absolutely unpatriotic, but
yeah,
it's okay. One of us will uphold patriotic duties, so as they're supposed to. I couldn't though for Air Force. My dad will be mad at me. He's Air Force, but we call them the Chair Force for a reason in the Army. So, They like to do a lot of sitting around, but yeah. Okay. So the score, 40-40, 20 points on the line this week, and now we're also just about at mid-season.
Yep.
Which means that next week, should we start unlocking double challenges like we did last year, toward the end of the year to make things more interesting? Confidence challenges, 10-point games.
I'm okay with Yeah, I think you and I have something to talk about. I think it's a fun concept if you want to have like one of those. That could be.
Now, the one thing that we could do, and this could be interesting, is if we set it so that only one of us could double challenge, and whoever uses the double challenge first owns it that week.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
Could do that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there could be a week where you don't use it, and there could be a week when we're both trying to. And so you have to be careful about where you use the challenge and all that, because there's only one in between the two of us, and we're fighting for it. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that could be a good idea we could talk about. Yeah, I like the idea to make things fun like that.
We're almost ready for kickoff here as FIU is getting ready to take on UTEP, a game that you picked, FIU.
Yeah, I did.
So before we go ahead and let everybody go watch that, is there anything else that we should cover?
No, I don't. Most weeks we talked about the Huesmann race. I don't think it's changed much. I think we still have Penix Williams near the top. Those two have separated themselves from the pack, and the few guys that might have a chance to make a case at this point would be Jordan Travis, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, who we talked about, and now Dylan Gabriel might have a chance. I don't know.
Yeah. Might?
Yeah.
He just might. Oh, boy. Dylan had a week, didn't he?
He did. Yeah.
Well, sweet, man. Good stuff as always.
Yeah.
Make sure that you follow him on Twitter, Mike at Huesmann CFB. Follow me at Draft Vogel. Follow the show at Gridiron Eve. Back next Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern as always. Hughes, until next week, good luck. I wish you best. I wish you the best of it. It's going to be a fun week.
It will be. Yeah. Take it easy, everybody.
Yep. Until next week, we're signing out.